The Boondokl Bedtime Stories by Dr. Robert Lefevre, number 3. The next morning, Dr. Nicola Pootl was up very early. She was so early that she was getting out of one side of the bed just as her husband, the Venerable Charles Pootl, was getting into his side after being up all night looking at the moon and the stars and the planets through his telescope. "Good morning, Venerable Pootl." "Good morning, Dr. Pootl." They always spoke to each other like that. They said it was a joke, but the children didn't really understand it, and the Boondokl certainly didn't. "It's just a tease, Henry. Don't let it worry you," said his mother reassuringly when Henry had asked why they didn't call each other darling like most people do. Anyway, on this special day, Dr. Pootl needed to be up early so that she could make sure that the house was very, very, very tidy, with everything in its proper place. Bishops don't come visiting every day. At breakfast, she said to Henry and Beatrice, "Now then, you two, I hope you keep your boondokl, if they exist, under control today." She didn't believe they did exist, but this was her way of telling Henry and Bea that she wanted their rooms to be particularly tidy, in case the bishop wanted to see them. He might not, but you could never tell with bishops. "I want you to be on best behaviour today." Henry wrinkled his nose, opened his eyes wide, pulled both his ears forward, and stuck out his tongue, making a dreadful face. Beatrice kicked him under the table, so that his eyes popped out even further. "Come on, children, stop that," said their mother. "You won't disappoint your father when the bishop comes here, will you?" "No, Mummy," said Henry and Beatrice together. And for once, they actually meant it, because they knew that this was an important day for their father. Dr. Pootl had a special plan. She checked the children's rooms after lunch and then locked them. Henry and Beatrice couldn't possibly get back into them and mess them up again. While they waited for the bishop to arrive, Henry read a book about beetles and earwigs and ladybirds and centipedes and all sorts of creepy-crawly things, because he liked that sort of thing. Beatrice wanted to play netball, but Henry said he wasn't going to play a girls' game, so she would jolly well have to play by herself. So Beatrice took the ball into the back garden and bounced it off the kitchen wall. Once she hit the window, but she was very lucky, and it didn't break. "Gosh, that was close," she said to herself out loud, and decided to put the ball away and help her mother in the kitchen. At 4 o'clock, the bishop arrived. He had a purple shirt, just like the Venerable Charles Pootl's black one, and with the same special collar. "Good afternoon, Dr. Pootl. Good afternoon, Charles. Good afternoon, children," he said. "Good afternoon," they all replied. "Shall we have tea?" said Dr. Pootl, leading the way through to the sitting room. Of course, it was perfectly tidy. Everything was in its proper place. There were no magazines on the floor, and there were no books left out on the table. There was a pretty bunch of flowers freshly picked from the garden. The television was definitely off. Everything was perfect. Everything went well. After tea, the bishop and the Venerable Charles Pootl talked for a time in the study. The children had to be very quiet so as not to disturb them. Dr. Pootl got them to help her with the washing up and with putting everything away exactly in the proper places. When the bishop had finished talking to the Venerable Charles Pootl, he came out into the hall. Dr. Pootl, wanting to make an especially good impression, suggested that he might like to see the children's rooms. "I would be delighted," said the bishop. "Please show them to me." Dr. Pootl got the key to the door of Henry's room and unlocked it, and they went inside. What a sight! The toys were on the bed and on the floor and all over the place. And there were lots of books and cards and bits of plasticine and marbles and a string of fairy lights left over from last Christmas, all making bridges and tunnels and runs around the room and under the bed and round again and finishing up in a pile of pillows just by the cupboard. "Well," said the bishop. "Well," said the Venerable Charles Bootle. "Well," said Dr. Bootle, "how on earth did that happen?" "I think I know," said Henry, biting his lip. "I expect you do, young man," said the Venerable Charles Bootle. "Let's go to your sister's room to show the bishop that at least one of our children knows how to look after things properly." The key was found, and the door to Beatrice's room was opened. It looked exactly like Henry's room, only worse. All her sports things had been taken out of the box in which they were normally kept, and they made it almost dangerous to enter the room. There were lots and lots of things that you could tread on and slip on. Also, there were lots of things that might fall off the dressing table and break if you fell against it. There were so many things absolutely everywhere that Dr. Nicola Bootle hurriedly closed the door again. "Oh, well, really," she said, all flustered, I don't know how on earth that could have happened." "Boondokl," said Beatrice. "Boondokl," said Henry. "Ah, yes," said the Venerable Charles Bootle. "Boondokl." "Well, I suppose it must be," said Dr. Nicola Bootle. "Boondokl," they all said. "Well, if you asked me," said the bishop, who didn't seem to be at all upset, "they look like nice normal rooms. What healthy children you have, Dr. Bootle. You've obviously brought them up very well, Charles." The Bootle family stood totally still. They were so surprised they could hardly breathe. In the silence, a rather strange song could just be heard, coming from one of the bedrooms. "Boondokl here, boondokl there, boondokl, boondokl everywhere." To be continued.